Good afternoon everyone, Beth here for another Wednesday Wellbeing video. This week we're going to be thinking about grieving the death of a loved one during the coronavirus crisis and while we're having lockdown restrictions. Most of us know someone who's died over the past few months, I suspect, whether because of coronavirus or something else. I think being bereaved is extra tough at the moment. Life is already tough for everybody right now. Lots of people are feeling anxious and stressed and isolated. We're getting a lot more exposure to grief and loss. Grief and death are in conversations on social media, on the news, and it's hard to avoid the subject. Some of us may have experienced more than one death, but we're also experiencing grief in other ways, from the loss of a way of living, from the loss of events that we may have planned, such as weddings and holidays, or anniversaries or big birthday parties. We may have lost a job. There's other reasons why it's difficult. We have reduced access to the usual support networks and support services. So face-to-face support services, including Space4, are not available to us at the moment. But tough, we may have been prevented from being with our loved one when they died, which can make it difficult to accept the reality of their death, especially if it's somebody very close. And there is restricted access to funerals, which may have eased a little bit with the easing of lockdown rules in general. And funerals that do happen will look quite different because of the rules surrounding them. But there are some basic principles that we can all look to help ourselves and each other through periods of grief and bereavement. Lots of these have been covered in more detail in previous videos. As I've said most weeks, talking is always important, so keep in contact with people and support each other, and make sure you talk openly and honestly about your feelings. Even if you're ashamed of feelings, find somebody you trust that you can talk to. The easing of the rules may have made this a bit easier to do this in person, but it may be that you still have to keep your distance from people, but we still have access to video calls and telephone calls and so on. And it can help to talk to people who knew the person that died, and that you can share memories with them and thoughts about them, and that they will know what you mean. But also it can be helpful to share with people who don't know the person, and maybe they are less emotionally involved and so can take a bit more on board and may even have a different perspective. But the most important thing is to listen to people who have been bereaved, if you're supporting them, and let them tell stories and share memories and share their feelings. It can be very cathartic. Something we've talked about before, make sure you look after yourself. Routines can be helpful, getting rest and eating properly. Do things that comfort you and distract you sometimes, so that you're not in that place of deep misery all the time. So again, things we've discussed before: mindfulness, exercise, crafts, hobbies, and be compassionate with yourself. And try not to feel guilty. Many people feel guilty if they're not actively mourning somebody. I mean, guilt is a normal part of the grief cycle. But there's extra reasons why people may feel guilty at the moment. people might feel guilty that they haven't protected their loved one successfully through through catching the coronavirus, or maybe where they feel guilty because they weren't there when they died. Even if that's not something that was in their control, they may feel guilty about it. Talk helps with these things. And if you're feeling that kind of guilt, it tends to get bigger and bigger if you bottle it up. Sometimes people feel guilty if they're struggling with grief, and they may think, my situation isn't as bad, isn't as tragic, isn't as awful as somebody else's situation, so I shouldn't feel like this. Or you may not be struggling as much as other people and feel it's a poor reflection on yourself that you don't care enough. But that's not really the way it works. Everybody is different, everybody grieves in a different way, and every one of our relationships is different. So when we lose the person, we will grieve in a different way. Seek practical help if you need to, and it fits within whatever the current regulations are. It might be help with organising the funeral. It might be cooking meals, doing shopping while the bereaved person is concentrating on all the administration around the death. Also, use support services and helplines. Although many support services aren't open for face-to-face meetings, there are many helplines out there. A couple of key ones are Cruse Bereavement Care, that have a helpline, and there is also a COVID-19 national NHS bereavement helpline, staffed by nurses, and they don't offer counselling as such, but they will offer signposting to other services, information, advice, and emotional support. And I will put links to them and other appropriate organisations in the comments. So what can we do to help ourselves and each other mourn or grieve a loved one? Well, obviously funerals are still happening, and the reason that funerals or collective acts of grief are beneficial are because they help you to accept the reality of the death. They help you to say goodbye to the person and to let them go. They're a shared communal experience where you can support each other, share memories, share thoughts and feelings, and also they're a time when you can fulfill any cultural or religious requirements that you may have. For me, funerals are important for a sort of symbolic handing over of the person to God's care. Other people with other systems of belief and may have a different perspective on it, and there may be specific rituals that need to be carried out. The rules around funeral restrictions have eased a little bit, but you do need to be prepared that funerals will be different to what you've experienced before. They may be delayed, they may be later after the death than you would expect, because of the numbers of people needing funerals. There are likely to be restricted numbers for how many people can attend, and it's likely to be the next of kin who chooses and invites people to attend. And within the funeral, there may be differences. There may be no hymns. You likely have to stick to social distancing regulations. There may be specific rules related to the venue where you're having having the funeral, such as wearing face masks or using hand gel. The rules may lighten again, but they may change the other way again. We've seen in Leicester that they've returned to full lockdown again, and so we may see that happening in local areas if there's another spike in coronavirus. But you'll be able to clarify what the rules are with a funeral director or with the celebrant, who is the person who's leading the service. Many funerals are being live streamed on the internet, so that you can actually watch them live. But be aware, although it means that you can be part of the funeral service, and it is certainly better than not being able to participate at all. Some people are saying that it's not the same and that they feel removed from what's going on, especially if the person that's died is very close to them, like a partner or a parent. If you're the person in organising the funeral, it's important to make sure people are aware that it's happening and how to access that live stream. And obviously you can make it a significant occasion by marking it at home at the same time as the funeral's going on. And even if you can't join in with live streaming, you might light a candle, have photographs, have prayers or significant readings, poems ready to use with your family, and you might even be able to do that with other groups via Zoom or similar apps. So if you can't join in with the funeral itself, you may want to plan a gathering for a memorial service or memorial event later on for when lockdown is over, and it can be very reassuring to know in your mind that that will happen at some point. But be creative at home as well. Like I say, use candles, photos, memories. You can usually find funeral service words on the internet for whatever is your relevant faith group. Poems and songs that were important to that individual. You can do that as a household or via Zoom. Or it may be that your extended family is used to, say, having a big communal meal together when a significant event happens, in which case you could arrange that all the separate households have a meal together at the same time, and connect up via Zoom or similar services, and while you're eating, share memories, maybe listen to music that was special to the person, share stories, and share a glass of their favourite tipple together. There's other things you can do, like watching the person's favourite television shows together in a similar way, or video clips that you have of the person, and maybe, depending on their age, even cine film of the person. I know my parents have some cine film of me and my sister when we were tiny that they've had put onto videos, and that sort of thing can be quite helpful, especially when you can't gather together. There are other things creative things that you can do that can be helpful with grief anyway, but maybe especially significant in these times, like creating a memory box or a memory book about the person, where you have photos and you write down memories and includes special things to that person. Or you might find it helpful to write a letter to the person, telling them how you felt about them, telling them some of the special memories you have of them, and saying how much you miss them. So these are some ideas that you can draw from about how to help deal with grief when the normal avenues aren't necessarily open to you. I will just add a note of caution that I've alluded to already. Try to avoid fixating on these things, and so try not to spend all your time looking at photographs of the person. Maybe take photographs out, look at them for a short time, and then put them away in a drawer. Think about it this way. You might feel like it's a sign of respect to hold on to that grief and stay with it. And I suspect that people who love you wouldn't want you to be stuck in that phase of misery. So you will go through feeling absolutely awful, but don't hold on to it. Give yourself breaks, have compassion, and be gentle with yourself, and make sure that you have times doing other things that take your mind off the situation. If you are persistently struggling with grief, do reach out to the helplines. If they aren't providing enough support, speak to your GP. They may be able to help you themselves. They may be able to refer you for counselling. It may be that you can have counselling via Skype or Zoom or one of those other services. And be aware that you're not alone. It is a tough time, and people are struggling with this. I found lots of individual stories on the internet, on blogs and in newspaper articles of people struggling with grieving during the current times. So as far as anything is normal at the moment, it is normal to struggle. So that's it for this week. Do think about if there's anything else you'd like to be covered in these sessions. As I always say, these sessions are for you, and so I want to address issues that are relevant to you. So do let me know. Contact details are going to come up on the screen in a minute. But for now, I hope you have a good week, and bye-bye for now.